You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in. Okay, listeners, welcome back. Today, I'm thrilled to have Damon Didier from Win at Ecommerce, the founder and CEO over there, onto the podcast to share a little about email marketing and really retention marketing as a whole. Damon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pat, for having me.
Our pleasure. Talk to us a little about Win at Ecommerce. What do you guys do over there?
Thanks for asking. What we do is we help e-commerce companies, people like that are listening right now, succeed at retention marketing, whether it's email, SMS, loyalty, rewards, reviews. We have a saying that is retention is the new acquisition. So we help with the rising costs of pay-per-click, of paid media. What we do is help founders and CEOs in the e-commerce space sell more, make more money, make better margins through the power of automation through email and SMS. And I would say right now, the golden age of our industry with first-party data, AI, and everything else. Hopefully today, you and your listeners can pick up a few free tidbits of information you can take to the bank and employ even better email marketing for your customers.
So for the typical e-commerce business that's listening, would you recommend that all businesses are investing in retention marketing? Is there a certain size that your business should really aim to reach before you start investing in this platform?
Great question. It's never too early to start. You're never too small to start. Never too big to start. The point is you need to start. So for those of you out there that aren't collecting emails, pre-sales, obviously you're likely getting it at checkout, but you need to be collecting it early pre-sales. If you're not doing that, you got to start right now. So the first step is to put that pop-up on your website, start collecting that email address and get to work. Even if you don't have a strategy built out, you don't know what you're going to do yet, just start collecting it. And the first just nugget right here is everyone knows that Google and Meta are third-party data sources, right? They collect third-party data, and Apple and everybody is out to get them from a privacy standpoint. But what is the holy grail is first-party or zero-party data. And that is permission-based marketing through email and SMS. That is us. What that means is when you have someone's email and they give you permission to market to them, then you can use that email, not only to email them, but you can also identify them on your site and what behaviors they're doing to do lifestyle and all that. But bigger than that is you can then send that person's information via email to Meta and Google Ads to remarket to them. And that is perfectly fine because that person gave you permissions. The short answer is TLDR, just start getting the information.
So let's talk a little about some of this first-party data. If I'm a business, I'm just putting the first email pop-up form on my site. I paused the podcast. I'm resuming now, pop-up form on the site right now. What are some of the things I should be at least experimenting with to start driving way more of this first-party data, whether it's SMS, email, you name it?
Perfect. The first thing is to get that pop-up right. Here's some free stuff that we do for our clients when we start off. People are smart. Your clients are smart. Your customers are smart. They know in exchange for their personal information, email or SMS, they want something back of value. So on that pop-up, we've tested many, many different ways, and pretty much without fail, we recommend on that pop-up, you do not tell them what the discount is. So this is another great takeaway. That pop-up should likely say something like, you've unlocked an exclusive discount, enter your email to receive it. That is 100% the best way to do it. You want to have an image on there on that box. You want to keep the copy short and succinct, and you only want to ask for the email. I know you'd like to find out their birth date and their name and the ages of their kids, but just hold off. Just get the email, start simple, start from there. And then once the person clicks submit, don't give them the code on the next part of the pop-up. Tell them to check their email or check their SMS to get the code, because ultimately your goal is to start increasing deliverability of those emails. You're going to do that because they're going to go to Gmail or Yahoo or whatever, immediately get that email, open it, likely click it, and that is telling the service provider, this is a safe, trusted email that I want to engage with, which is going to make all of your later nurturing emails and all that much more deliverable and much more likely to get into the inbox. And then going to that email, the next step would be on that first email they get, don't tell them about your life story, why you started the company, how great you are. They don't care yet. You just want to above the fold CRO techniques in email in a nice, beautiful image with a big, bold headline. Say to them very succinctly, here is what the offer is. So if it's a 10% off with the code WELCOME10, it is save 10% off your first purchase, welcome 10. Here's a button, a CTA, click here to get started. And if you're somebody that does not want to give out a discount, I think you probably should. But if you want to do a PDF or do some sort of other item of value, make sure it's valuable enough for people to click. And then you can offer them right there, the download of the PDF or whatever in that first email. But the right between the eyes, what I recommend everyone does, first things first, just to get the thing kicked off and get people moving.
So many good points you hit on there. And that's, I think, even going to the pop-up form, like keep it super simple, focus on that singular connection point that you can have with the audience. We joke that we see so many scenarios where, whether it's on the purchase page or whether it's like a lead form, let's say for another business, oftentimes you'll see people asking like 10, 20, 30 questions. Just the conversion rates are so low every time. The easier you can make it to say, hey, all we need is your email address, like maybe your first name, just the higher those conversion rates tend to be.
100%. And trust me, I've talked to those business owners. They're like, Damon, if I ask 10 things and they fill it out, they're highly qualified. Yeah, totally. They probably are, maybe not. I wouldn't even push back against that. But the fact is, you've lost a potential, like probably 90% of people that would be potential customers that if you just were spend a little bit more work, you'd get there. And one thing too, Pat, you asked in the question that I didn't answer appropriately was the A/B testing. What I just presented to everybody is where we start on a baseline, but it's always about testing. And you need to have time for that. And we're a Klaviyo Master Platinum partner. And what we have versus other people has is time. We set up A/B testing over and over again, and they come back once it's reached statistical significance. And then we'll start testing a new version. And what works for me may not work for you, but the idea is you find it out by testing.
Absolutely. Within that, you're just launching this first form on the site. You're starting to collect email addresses. At what point would you recommend businesses really start investing the resources into A/B testing versus maybe at what point is it better just to say like, hey, we're early stage. Let's not invest too many resources into having 5 different variants that we're going after. Would love to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah. So let's say if you're small, just starting out, you don't have the time or resources to A/B test. What is nice about Klaviyo in particular, and I'm sure the other ESPs have something similar, is you can benchmark against others in your industry. Once a month, just check that form out and it'll tell you in Klaviyo if it's doing fair or good or excellent. If it's doing fair or poor, just go on in there and tweak something up and see what happens. Don't get too crazy with it. But I do completely appreciate those that are starting out and the lack of resources. And I think the good news for you, for the people in that department, would be the best emails that work for us are succinct, short, to the point, with a clear call to action, which in reality doesn't take a lot of time. You probably have gotten those super huge emails that are super beautiful. I will challenge you. You could probably Pareto's principle, 80-20 rule, do 20% of that email and get 80% of the results of that email. And for time-strapped entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, that's what you've got to do. It is important, though, to do good design and do good copy. But at the end of the day, I don't always believe you have to do everything perfect from the get-go. Again, just doing it is the most important part. And I think to tag onto this is, how do you know if it's doing good or not? Again, the benchmarks are in there. You want to be a minimum 1.5% click rate, a minimum 35% open rate on these emails, and then go up from there. Every industry and business is different. Those are minimums. But also in Klaviyo and other platforms, you can see that customer just checked out. You could go in there and see their life cycle. What happened to them? Did they get an email? Did they not get an email? What happened? And just look at their entire cycle of what happened to them and just make sure, are they getting the messages and everything that I expected them to get? And if not, just course correct.
And I wanted to go back to one of the items you had mentioned before, the idea of boosting deliverability on that first email that you send over. And that is, in email marketing, such a foundational component that I think often gets overlooked. So within that, what are some of the things, if I'm just starting to build my subscriber base, I'm getting ready to start investing in email marketing, what are some of the things I should start doing today to really boost my deliverability for tomorrow?
Great question. So a lot of these things you have to do now. They were optional, but as of February 1st, Google and Gmail and Yahoo made this mandatory, but the from email address should be like a friendly hello or send or whatever at your company domain. So you need to set up like a sender domain under your company's domain. For Klaviyo and a lot of other providers, that's now a requirement, but you got to get that done from the get-go. And it does take some warming up. So if you're brand new, I don't think you should be worried about warming. If you're a big client, over 5,000, I say big would be a couple 100,000, over 5,000 emails or more, you do want to warm up that new domain when you get started. There's a new thing called DMARC, and then new, but it's been around, but it's now newly required. DMARC, DKIM, and SPF are all domain level changes you have to make to your domain. You need to get those done starting from day one, like, right? Go into your domain, GoDaddy, Network Solutions, Namecheap, put those in there. All of the ESPs are going to help you out with that. Get all that done. And those things are like the bare minimum to start getting deliverability. Then as it goes forward is, if you just start out, don't send campaign monthly email out unless you got something important to say. If there's nothing good to say, then don't say it. Respect your people. In Klaviyo world and in other platforms for e-com, there's the automations, Klaviyo calls them flows. And then there's like the campaigns, which are like one by one you create and send. And to start, you definitely want to do the welcome series automations. You definitely want to do an abandoned browse, an abandoned cart, and then the thank you series. All of those should all be kind of on the automation side, the first things you do. Then on the campaign side, that's talking to those people that already went through there, or maybe new people that went through it and then left. When you make an email, do something that's worth their time. And that can be a bunch of different things, but that's what I recommend.
So in one other item I did want to mention just for the listeners, based on what you had shared about like really building up your email delivery rates, and you had mentioned the idea of some email warming tools. I did want to ask, are there any tools in particular that you recommend for email warming specifically?
So not necessarily. Like, I'll go back to Klaviyo, but this is like the tactic, the strategy. So let's say you've got a big list and you're moving providers. You need to get the open rate above 35%. They say 25%, but we like 35. And then the click rate, again, above 1.5, but it'd be great to be at 2 or 3%. So how do you do that? If you're migrating platforms, you want to take the most engaged people. So we always start and make a segment of 30-day engaged. So 30-day engaged is loosely defined as opened. I should say, I'm not going to use open because Apple kind of makes that rough. Let's say clicked an email in the last 30 days or was active on your site in the last 30 days. So that is like in the last month, they were there. That's a good likelihood they're going to open something up. So we would send an email to those people, maybe send 2 or 3 over the course of a week or two. If you're seeing a minimum of 25%, but again, we want to be at like 35% or above open rates, decent click rates. Then you go to 60 days engaged, same metrics, 60 days on the website, 60 days clicked, maybe even bring in opens over 60 days, but exclude the Apple opens, and then send a few emails out, 2 to 3 to that segment. Again, waiting to achieve the correct open and click rate. And then you go to 90, and then at 90, you're pretty good. The whole course of action for a larger size, medium to large size account will take about a month and a half. And at any time, if the numbers dip, you need to go back to the previous one and do it all over again. If you've got your flows going, though, too, the welcome, abandoned browse, and abandoned cart, they're going to help you because they're automatically sending those little transactional emails out, and they're going to help get that number nurtured up. But if you're not seeing, like I said, after 2 to 3 emails, the right KPIs to move you to the next level, there might be something else going on. So that's problematic. And you don't want to rush the warming. You don't want to go too fast into it. And generally speaking, my last little piece of advice here is if you're in around 3,000 to 4,000 people in that segment, that 30-day engaged segment, that's optimal. And talking to some new clients, they're very antsy to get started and get migrated and move. But we got to say, hey, hold on. Trust us. It's better for us to do it that way. And ultimately, the companies like Google and Yahoo and AOL, they are using AI now when they're ingesting emails. And depending upon how the first batch of those emails arrive and get treated, determines what happens to everything else behind that. So it's super, super important that this warming process happens, not for your ESP, but really for the deliverability on the other side to make sure that everything's good.
And you had hit on a point about avoiding Apple in terms of your email deliverability. I imagine that has to do with the privacy concerns that they've been starting to address.
Yeah, so there's actually two levels of it now. So iOS 14.5 came out with their Apple Privacy Open. So if it's Apple Mail on any device, or actually I guess it's pretty much it, Apple Mail on any device, it'll automatically open every email. So in the industry, everyone's open rates went through the roof, which is fantastic if you don't know what's going on. But the problem is today, a lot of people might look at their account and be like, I'm at 45% open rate. So we'll go in and create a segment that gets rid of those Apple privacy opens. And all of a sudden now you look at that segment, you're like, wait, not nearly as good as you thought. So I know an attribution inside of Klaviyo, you could actually unattribute Apple opens for your attribution model, which is something we recommend for our clients. It's really a sharp thing to do. The new problem is link sharing. So now this goes back again to third-party data. Starting at iOS 16, when you share a link in Apple Messages, in your Apple Mail, and there's one other place that I'm forgetting, if you've got those little UTM parameters, they'll strip it out. To help for privacy purposes, Apple will just automatically strip those parameters out so you can't pass along those parameters anymore for identification and for campaign tracking and everything else. Once again, the good news is because the Klaviyo in your email is first party, if we send that email or message and then you take that behavior later on, the session ID links up with the email and life is good and we have perfect tracking again.
Going back to one of the other items you had started to mention before, stepping back a level before we got into the email deliverability a little bit deeper, you had mentioned the idea of a couple different automations to set up, and then thinking about campaigns is a great thing. If I'm summarizing correctly, campaigns is a really good thing to start doing for those subscribers who already get beyond those initial automations that we have rolled out. So let's dive a little deeper into some of those initial workflow automations. What are some of the biggest things that listeners should be building out?
Okay, yeah, great question. So on the welcome series, we usually do a minimum of 3. The first one, again, is delivering on the promise of the pop-up, 100%. And these are for people that go to the pop-up and go to the welcome series that way, not for people who check out and then go that way. Like they'll get something different. We don't want to give them welcome to our company kind of email because they already bought. So the first one is welcome and whatever discount or promise you made in the pop-up. Number 2 usually is like a story about the brand. If you've got a story, your purpose and all that. Now, I got to tell founders this. The thing is, I'm sure your story is amazing. I'm sure everyone loves your story and would like to sit around the campfire and talk about it, but people are busy. So the important part is that you need to respect your client, respect your customer, get to the point, and if you can, tell the story in an image instead. So if you're a brand that started selling, as is a client we're talking to now, doing cheese that's vegan friendly and environmentally friendly, then how can you say that in an image above the fold? Just as you open up your phone, you can get the message and get the point in a fraction of a second and then go from there. That second email will likely be sent to people who haven't bought yet. So you do want to still have your offer right beneath it, but it's below the fold. So now we're trying to brand build a little bit, talk about what we stand for. We're being like, this is our tribe, and we want you to belong in that tribe. And, are you with us? Messaging. And then you put we put a little blurb down there, usually no more than 2 sentences, probably reiterate the welcome offer again to get them to come back, and then go from there. The third one is usually UGC, reviews, people talking about testimonials, those kinds of things. Whatever content you've got already, you pop in there. And that is the third one. Again, reiterating the original offer, because by email 3, if they haven't bought yet, you want them to still buy. Here's another really important thing. In our testing is that in the first 6 days of someone signing up, you can send a ton of emails to somebody without them unsubscribing. That is a Damon heuristic. There's no number I've got out there. We've just done it. I've done it and it's worked out fine. So what that means is if you're sending the welcome email and then waiting 3 days to send the second email and waiting 4 days to send the third, you're wasting an excellent opportunity. If you put yourselves in the mind of your customer, they're time strapped, they've come to your site because they've got a need and they likely want to fulfill the need. And even if you don't perfectly fulfill the need, I think most people are willing to not waste the time to research more companies, especially if they give you their email. It's better to just keep on hitting some buttons to find that final piece that's going to get them over the hump into the buying. So I recommend you send that welcome email immediately. that second email a day later, that third email a day later. Sometimes even cramming those three into a shorter period. And if you really want to, add a fourth email in there as well. So the idea is it's very easy to ignore an email. So don't worry about them getting too many emails at first. That is really your only opportunity to really get them to buy. To quickly transition over to abandoned browse and abandoned checkout. There's another one, abandoned cart. There's like three, but the checkout and the browse are the most important. Is those keep them simple. We literally send the abandoned browse like an hour or two after you're on the site. You put the product at the top above the fold that they were looking at and browsing so that it's a highly mass customization at scale. It's highly engaging to them, and you go from there. Yes, beneath it, if they haven't used the welcome deal yet, we could put a dynamic block in there that shows them the welcome code again. And then beneath it, if you do want to do a little bit of like your brand messaging and all that, you can. But I usually like to keep that abandoned browse pretty short. And then on the, probably just do one, maybe two of those tops. And then finally, the abandoned checkout. That should be a big earner. A lot of times people are abandoning checkout because of shipping costs. So consider that. Like they're abandoning for a reason. That email should, one, say, we're holding your cart. I like to put in a finite time period. You do go out of stock out there. I'm sure you do. So you don't want them to think that they can just wait a few days because you might be out of stock on something. So to do that time urgency. And then you want to do that little button that says, go right back to your cart. So all the major e-commerce platforms support it. So you can click a button and then your cart's sitting right there for you. And they just need a little nudge. Again, if they have not used the welcome discount yet, you want to have a dynamic block that shows that. Or if there's some other cohort or segment, you can dynamically change that out to whatever offer or discount. Maybe it's free shipping if that's a problem. If they buy in the next 24 hours, whatever you want to do, just get them to get over the hump and check out.
Phenomenal. So many insights there. So
it's a lot there.
Let's think someone who has gone through this welcome series. Let's actually say that they make a purchase from you. So the vegan cheese client, someone subscribes, they end up making a purchase. They go through the workflow series. I'm assuming there's a pretty high likelihood that many of those cheese customers are going to come back, or will be likely to come back again if they have the right impetus, taking them back to the site. After that first purchase, how should I think about getting some of those past customers back to my site through email marketing?
Perfect. Yeah. So it starts with the thank you series. So there's going to be two people that are in there, ones that already got emails from you and kind of know you, and then another group they just signed up for email at the very end. And the thank you is like a transactional type email. So it doesn't have the same marketing parameters that the other emails do. So with that out of the way, you want to make sure at that point, the experience is really great. Let them know about shipping times. Where is it at in the process? If they sign up for SMS, even better. Like people love SMS for telling them about shipping at the end of it, which is a great doorway into long-term marketing via SMS. And that thank you series, you just want to think about just giving them that little love and attention for every step of the process, from order confirmation to its shipping is on its way to arrival. And then even think about after arrival, what does that look like? You want to probably ask for a review a few days after they get it. And if there's any kind of instructions on how to use the product or get the best out of the product. If you're selling a food product, the cheese is a great example. What are great pairings for the cheese that they bought? So now you're enhancing the experience, but also branding yourself and developing the first steps of the long-term relationship. After that, completely separate flows would be for, I think, cross-sell. So sometimes you buy this product and it goes really good with this product. What we would do in between that and when we think the next order is going to happen would be we take usually the top 2 to 3 products or product categories and say, okay, what is complementary that we have to those 3 items? And then if they buy that, it's the only time they would get this particular email. And it says, you bought this, and I think you should buy that. Like maybe the cheese company sells a cheese set, like a board, cheese cutting board. So it's like, oh, you bought this. Now imagine next time you host your friends having this beautiful cheese board. Because you previously purchased, you get this with whatever discount or whatever. Sometimes with some clients, we might even move that really soon after the sale if there's like a few days for them to ship, so that maybe we can even add on to the sale before it ships out and save them on shipping. But that's neither here nor there. So the cross-sell is a really good flow that you identify 2 to 3 products or categories and go there. The next one is for people that might go away. So what we want to do is inside of Klaviyo, there's predictive analytics, part of the Klaviyo AI suite of features. that has a predicted next purchase date. So because of that, we usually know when we expect them to buy again. So the goal is, how do we encourage that to happen, is a couple days or maybe a week before that date hits. And it's custom by customer. It's pretty neat like that. We encourage the next sale. I don't think we encourage it with a discount because it's likely that they might buy already. So we don't want to give an unnecessary discount, but we do want to start setting that sale up and planting that seed. This kind of a email is perfect for like when people feel like that email just came at the perfect time for me. Like, how do they know I wanted that right now? It's because some of these predictive analytic type tools that are, for many of you out there, already available at your disposal, and you just deliver the right email at the right time. And if they can rebuy your product, the product they bought before, you put that one in there. If you think they'll buy something else, you can put a dynamic content block of popular items from the last week. Especially if it's seasonal, like we work with a coffee brand. Pumpkin spice latte is great in September, but it's blasé by January. If I send an email to somebody in January from somebody who bought pumpkin spice latte in September, instead I want to put in there like, here, these are the January favorites or seasonal favorites for right now, to just get them to buy before they drop off and to continue the cycle.
We're coming up on time here. One of the final items that I really wanted to ask you about today is, let's say for call it like the really hands-on founders, or maybe it's the marketing manager that's trying to balance way too many things. What are some of the signals that maybe it would be a good time for them to hire a specialist, whether it's an agency, whether it's a full-time employee, to start running retention marketing for the business?
Yeah, totally. Here's the thing. Email is time-based, not like your personal time invested in it. It's like calendar time. If you miss something because you don't have the time to make the email, it's time to find help. So like Easter's coming out. Obviously, there's Easter sales. But if you don't have time to make an Easter sale, then it's time to give it to somebody else. If you look back at the last month, you're like, man, I sent 2 emails. Their click rates are like 10%. Their open rates are 50%. And you're like, I could have sent 4 or 5 more. It's time to get some help. And agencies like mine are out there to help people do this. And if you ask me, the number one thing we do is give founders and solopreneurs time back. But also, we even have services that we call it done with you. So if you do hire that person that maybe, I know all of us are cash strapped, so that just is good at email, but not great. We offer services too, where we work alongside your internal people to give them the resources from Klaviyo that we get as Master Platinum partners to make your people even better. So there's all kinds of solutions for you out there where you don't need to be struggling with this. The ones that I really get scared about, Pat, to be honest with you, are the owners that love to make emails, because frankly, they should be spending their time doing something else. I love that they love emails because that's where I spend my time at, but I spend my time at it because that's my company. That's what we do. I don't think owners should be spending a lot of time on this. It should be on autopilot, whether it's an internal person or an agency.
Damon, this has been amazing. For listeners that want to get in touch with you, maybe to look into even hiring your agency for retention marketing, what are the best way for people to learn more about you and really learn more about the team?
Yeah, for every listener out there, we'll do a free audit of your email marketing and give you some pointed feedback of what you can do. Just go to www.win@ecommerce.com, all spelled out. So win@ecommerce.com. When you go on there and click the contact us button, you're contacting me. We'll set up a call and learn a little bit about you, and then we'll get on into your account, take a look around, and give you some good feedback on what you can do. And for whatever minute you spend with us, we'll give you definitely a value back and what you can employ or what we can employ for you in your email marketing.
Damon, thank you for coming on today. This was amazing.
Thank you, Pat. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.